Alright guys, I wanted to make a video about Tekken 8 because I did put over 1,000 hours of gameplay into it and managed to climb from beginner to God of Destruction rank in over 10,000 ranked battles. And I wanted to kind of talk about what I've learned about what Tekken is and I guess explain the game a bit. And so, you know, it's a fighting game, you're trying to lower your opponent's health to 0 before they do it to you, or you can try to have more health than them by the time the round time runs out. You have 60 seconds per round. You have to win 3 rounds to win a game, and typically sets are 2 out of 3 games. I picked Lili, and so my experience with the game is from the perspective of playing as her. The 4 face buttons on the controller are your 4 limbs. Actually, there's not a block button. To block, you hold back. You can also crouch block by holding down back. Your fastest moves are typically your quick jab. The 4 face buttons typically get labeled as 1, 2, 3, and 4. So instead of saying square, triangle, circle, or whatever, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, or 4. 1 being left punch, 2 being right punch, 3 being left kick, and 4 being right kick. So if I just press 1, this is my jab. It's 10 frames, and that's pretty universally true across the board. Everyone has like this 10 frame jab attack. And so 10 frames is a relevant number. I mean, the game runs at 60 frames per second, and in 10 frames I can put out an attack. You can also combine a directional input with a button, so forward and 2 gives me this. Forward and 4 gives me this. Or if I do like back plus 1, I get this. So there are many different attacks. In fact, the move list tends to be pretty large. If you really look through it for each of these characters, they have many attacks, and there's really a mountain of information and knowledge behind this stuff. So it can be a bit overwhelming to learn, especially when you're fighting against so many different characters. And so it's been an uphill battle. You can think of Tekken like a large mountain you're trying to climb, and it's definitely not a sprint. It's like a long trek or something like this. Attacks come in 3 kind of levels. There are high attacks, mid attacks, and low attacks. If you're stand blocking, you can block highs and mids. Lows will hit you though. And if you're crouch blocking, you can block lows, but mids will hit you. However, you'll duck underneath high attacks. So that makes mids pretty valuable because you can't duck under them. Like, mids are good, you know, they're just good attacks. But of course, if someone just stand blocks all the time, lows are really good. Hit them in the feet. So yeah, you can tap up to sidestep into the background, tap down to sidestep into the foreground. You can double tap to walk. And there are even attacks that happen from a step. So here's like sidestep 4, or sidestep 1 plus 2, as in pressing both punch buttons. There are also attacks from crouch, so like fully crouching down forward 1, I get this like slap attack. There are also attacks from while rising, as in like you're releasing crouch. I typically call these while standing attacks, so like while standing 4, while standing 2, while standing 1, 2. Alright, so I really need to explain the concept of frame data and safe and unsafe attacks. This is pretty important. So when I do an attack, whether it hits or if it's blocked, there's some notion of frame advantage or frame disadvantage. Like if I do this jab and they block it, who gets to act first after that interaction. It's all about who can act first. If I can act first, then I have a frame advantage, and if they can act first, then I have a frame disadvantage and they have frame advantage. The more plus something is, the more advantageous it is. And you can actually see these numbers. You can turn on show frame advantage in practice mode. So here you see if they block my jab, I'm actually +1. That means if we both try to jab immediately as fast as we can after this interaction, my jab would hit them before their jab would hit me. In fact, their jab would not hit me because the moment my jab hits them, their attack is no longer active. Different attacks have different amount of frame advantage or disadvantage. So here's just a bunch of different attacks. 1, down forward 1, down forward 3, quarter circle forward 3+4, I don't know, back 1 4, or down 3+4. If you do a move that is -10 or worse, and they block it, for example, this move's -11 on block, that means they can retaliate and get a guaranteed hit on me. This makes the move unsafe to throw out. It's not a safe move. So this is a safe move at -9. This is an unsafe move at -11. Because your fastest moves are typically 10 frames. Also, it's different on hit. So my jab on hit, on block it was +1, but on hit, I'm +8. This move, down forward 3, it was +3 on block. It's +8 on hit. Not all moves are plus on hit. So for example, down forward 4 4, it's -2 on hit. Or this slide attack, that's -2 on hit. So even if my move hits the opponent, it does not mean I have frame advantage. Alright, so Tekken punishment. So specifically with Lili, there's sort of like 3 levels of punishment. There's the lightly punishable attacks, the middlingly punishable attacks, and then the launch punishable attacks. This is true for both stand block and crouch block. So I've set up 6 scenarios here. So this first scenario, this is the jab punish. I can do 1-1 to put me in back turn at +4. I can do 1-2 for less damage, but it puts me at +8. And finally, I can do 2-4. This does a lot of damage, but the thing is, the 2 jab is very short range, whereas the 1 jab is really reliable. It's actually a very good jab, but the 2 jab is lacking range. So if they do something that's -10 or -11, and they end up right next to you, you can get this, which is great. And you know, I also need to talk about contextual punishment. So if their back is to the wall, for example, this 2-4 punish will wall splat them, and at that point you can pick it up and get more damage. Like this, for example. And interestingly, it depends on which side I'm on. So if I'm to the left of them and the wall is in the foreground, then 2-4 will wall splat. The situation is different though if the wall is behind. 2-4 will send them away from the wall. For moves that are 12 frames, 13 frames, or 14 frames, I can do forward 2-3. Gives me 30 damage. Like this. However, for moves that are -13 on block, there are other punish options. I can do this for 5 more damage. So it does 35 instead of 30. But this comes with a drawback, because after I hit that, I'm actually -2. Which means the other player has an advantage in the situation. So to kind of smooth things out and to simplify things, I can kind of just, for everything from 12 to 14 frames, I can just do forward 2, 3. That way I'm not putting myself at some kind of strategical disadvantage immediately after the punishment. However, if I do need more damage, I can do this. But again, this is in 12 frames, whereas this is 13, so it depends on what attack I'm punishing. There is one more 13 frame concept here, which is back 2-1. This move is interesting because if you hold forward, you go into do glide stance. If you do nothing, you just do the move, and if you hold back, you go into back turn stance. And this puts you into back turn at +7, which is enough frames to try to start mixing them up. So it's interesting, but I haven't been incorporating that much. But it's definitely something I was curious about. But in general, for moves that are 12 frames to 14 frames, I can just do this and get damage. So finally, launch punishable moves on standing block. Just hop kick, which then leads into a combo. Once the combo starts, it cannot be avoided. There are additional launches you can do. At -17, you can do this. Down 3 + 4. This leads into a lot of damage, typically. Although with this wall here, it kind of messes me up. But, yeah, greater punishes are possible. But to simplify it, it's like 10 frames, you get the jab punish. 12 frames, you get the forward 2, 3. And then 15 frames, you get the hop kick. For crouching, most lows, you're going to be punishing them. Even if they're only lightly punishable, they're at least -11. So you can do well standing 4 as the punish. And in general, if you don't know how punishable a low is, if you block it, well standing 4 is typically going to work. So at least you'll get some damage. And then for -13 or -14, you can get well standing 1, 2, and that goes into do glide, so you can try to further mix them up with stuff like this. You have to be really careful about this well standing 1, 2 punish though, because the problem is if they block the first hit and they recognize the animation, they can duck the second hit, and then at that point you get launched. So this is actually a very risky attack to do unless you're doing a guaranteed punish. So I do not recommend using this move unless you are pretty confident about like what you're punishing with it. But yes, it is good if you block something like this. And finally, the launch punishable low situation. You can do well standing 3. This does combo. There's a variety of combos you can do with this. Or you can hop kick. That also works. So then it's just the same as the standing punish. So in general, that's kind of how punishing works, at least with Lili. Different characters have different options. Some characters can launch from crouching block if they're +14. Kazuya and Eddie, I believe, can launch you if they block a -13 low. And some characters have like well-standing heat engagers that can connect at -13 or sometimes even faster than that, so it kind of depends. Like I think Leo and Mieri, for example, if I go for the feisty low and they block it, they can get a heat engager off of that. Different matchups have different, considerations, but in general, I think it's a core Tekken thing, regardless of what character you're playing. You have to know these sort of punish ranges, like -10 through -15 for crouching and standing. It's something that you have to know for your own character. Also, regarding punishing low attacks, some low attacks that are lightly punishable, you only get, say, a while standing 4 punish. So, for example, that does 18 damage. Just 18 damage. Alternatively, I can go for a low parry, and this gives me a miniature combo. It's a miniature combo because the tornado mechanic doesn't work in the combo. The tornado mechanic is when you use certain attacks in the combo, it kind of puts them on their back and lets the combo continue. So for example, right there's the tornado, and I can continue the combo from there. If you low parry, the tornado's not available, it doesn't bound them like that. But you still get some good damage off the miniature combo. So, for example, going back to our example here, instead of blocking this and getting 18 damage, I can instead low parry. That's 54 damage right there. It's a significant increase. So oftentimes against lightly punishable lows, low parry is actually the better choice instead of blocking. Another factor with this game is the walls. This actually gives the combo system depth, because without walls, without other things such as the balcony over here, this balcony is breakable and you can go down to a different part of the stage. Yeah, walls in general and the way you interact with stages, it definitely adds depth to the combos, because if we were playing on a big, empty, open stage, which there are a few of those, typically you're going to see the same combos over and over. And I think it takes actually a lot of experience to get used to being able to convert into a proper wall combo. The moment you get the launch, you have to like be aware, how far are they from the wall? Like, what can I actually do before they hit the wall? And then, in that case right there, the final hit I tried to do missed because they splatted the wall too low or they were on the wall too long. So the spacing between you and the opponent at the wall matters. And also the angle, the axis. Like, this is at a diagonal axis to the wall, so when this combo goes off, see, there I only got 47 damage because, first of all, I didn't anticipate hitting the other wall in the foreground. You have to have really good stage awareness. It's pretty interesting. I've seen scenarios where you go into a replay and then you take over control, and typically if you do that for a while, you can really optimize strange combos where it's like, oh yeah, I'm really off axis, I'm hitting the wall at this part of the combo. Maybe I can convert that into even more hits. But it's not intuitive how to do that in the heat of the moment. So doing like optimal combos in this game, when dealing with walls and off-axis scenarios, I think is very difficult. I think there's a really high skill ceiling when it comes to like awareness and knowledge of being able to optimize combos. But all that being said, I guess I should talk a little bit more about combos, in that they're extremely non-interactive for the person being comboed. Once you start getting comboed, you can put the controller down and it makes no difference. There's nothing you can do at all to influence the situation at all once it begins. Once you get to a situation where you've hit the floor, in certain situations you can tech roll, or you can just decide to stay on the ground. There are different kind of scenarios you can do. Like I have these ground techniques set to shuffle, and so these are like the different options you can do. You can do all these, and you can also stay on the ground when you hit the ground in like a tech roll scenario. Alright, a little thing about throws in Tekken. There are generic throws, such as this, and this. These throws, they home, which means Even if the opponent is sidestepping, the grab will connect. They can be broken by pressing either 1 or 2, but if you press 1 plus 2, it does not break. And they don't do that much damage, but sometimes they have interesting properties. So for Lili, her 1 plus 3 throw here, generic throw, it breaks the floor. And this leads into a combo. So that's great. Her 2 plus 4 generic throw will swap the sides on hit. Like if it's not broken, then I'll be fighting on the right side and my opponent will be on the left side. Another interesting interaction is if I use my generic 1 plus 3 throw and my back is to the wall. If they break it, it swaps sides, so that kind of helps with positioning. But other than the generic throws, Lili also has a command throw. Every single character has at least one command throw. And Lili's is this. The command throws do not home, but they do more damage. So it's a more damaging throw. It has to be broken with 1 plus 2. And it's steppable. Other characters like Jin have throws like this that have to be broken with 1. It's a command throw where 1 is how you break it. He also has a command throw you have to break with 2. And he has the 1 plus 2 break as well. You can distinguish these different throws by the animation. It is, in my opinion, very hard to break throws correctly in the heat of the moment. So if I have this Jin mix between these 3 different breaks, like I'm already messing up. Like, I just kind of panic and press the wrong button. Okay, broke that, messed up. Now some people are really good at breaking throws. I find it rather challenging. I've noticed that some of my reaction time is pretty poor. I usually don't have a problem seeing which animation it is, but confirming the animation and then pressing the right button in the heat of the moment, I find it to be quite challenging. Throws have a narrower break window if you counter hit, so that makes throws even harder to break. There are also throws in the game that are naturally unbreakable, like Reina has one of those. And yeah, some characters with the command throws, like for example Zhao Yu does not have a 1 break command throw, but she does have a 2 and a 1 plus 2 break. Whereas Raven doesn't have a 2 break, but he does have a 1 break and a 1 plus 2. So different characters have different amount of command throws, and Lili does not have anything other than the 1 plus 2. So her throw game is, you could say it's less effective than other characters like Nina and Jin and Jack. Oh yeah, one more thing about throws. There are side throws and back throws. These are harder to break because depending on which side, it has to be either 1 or 2. And then finally, if you grab them from behind, it does a load of damage and it's unbreakable. There are high crushing moves like this. So, for example, you see this? Even though I didn't crouch, I'm still evading their high. In fact, I'm crushing the high, which means there's a certain frame window in which high attacks will just simply not hit. It's during this animation. It's considered a high crush. There are also low crush attacks. They will just evade the low. Like this, I guess. And then not only are there so-called crushing moves, there are also evasion moves. So this, for example, this technically doesn't crush anything. As in, it doesn't have invulnerability to moves with like high property. However, her body goes really low and evasive. So she literally just evades the attack. And this move in particular is extremely evasive, to the point where it can evade mid attacks as well, some of them.
Get ready for the next battle.
There's a sequence here that's pretty interesting, so let me show you this. There. Okay. Now this first move, it's pretty bad for the defender. I'm -5 frames. Right there, -5. So if I try to interrupt, I just get blown the hell up. Like I can't even jab. It's too fast. Can I sidestep? I cannot sidestep because that's a homing mid that he's doing, and I can't crouch it, right? There's like it's strong, right? But at -5, I can go underneath it with Matterhorn with down 3+4. I can actually just simply go underneath it. Like that. Pretty amazing. Other characters may have their own highly evasive panic options. Patience is the key. These tend to be moderately to heavily punishable. There's also stuff you can do at the wall. If you press back, back, up, back at the wall, you can do some kind of wall action like this. And if I set them to block and then punish with a quick jab, you can see I'm +2. I actually have a bit of room there. And actually from back turn like this, Lili actually has an 8-frame jab. That's 8 frames. This right here. But yeah, I have frame advantage after they block this, so I can trap them with that, right? It's a counter hit. It's a counter hit because they tried to attack, but I'm faster. Oh, I need to talk about counter hits as well. So, yeah, certain moves get different properties upon counter hitting the opponents. So that means if the opponent is trying to attack and you hit them first, sometimes you can gain extra advantage due to the properties of the move changing. That's a counter hit, right? Now you can hear it's a loud impact sound and it says counter. There's a little red flash as well. If I do this and I hold forward to go into my do glide stance at +14, I can do 2, which is 14 frames. So that means it connects, it's guaranteed. And then from there I go into do 2-1 like this. And that's a heat engager, I'll talk about that in a second. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if I counter hit back 1, so I'll interrupt that attack. That sequence there becomes a 3-hit combo, even though normally they can block me, and then I'm -13, they get a punish, right? But if this is a counter hit, the move property changes, it becomes more advantageous, and then this whole thing connects as one combo. That's like an example of what counter hits can do. Another example would be... Alright, so look at this situation here, where I counter hit this attack, okay? This is an incredible move for my character. It's very long range, it's plus on block, up close it's +3. So I want to use this move, it's a mid plus on block mid, it's very good, right? This is just a great move to try to like control things. But if I counter hit with it, that is a counter hit launch. So instead of just hitting them with it, on counter hit, it leads into a combo. So, you can see that counter hits are important, learning which moves have counter hit properties is important, knowing which opponent moves have counter hit properties is important. There are a lot of counter hit launchers in the game. It sometimes makes you afraid to attack because if I attack and they happen to do a counter hit launching attack, then I might just suddenly die. So you have to be careful. So Tekken 8 introduced the heat system. The blue bar is your heat bar. You have it at the start of every round. And you can activate it in two ways. The first way is to do something called a heat burst. 2 plus 3. I macro that onto my shoulder button, so I can just press the shoulder button. It is an attack that has armor. It kind of freezes the whole thing for a second. It like freezes the opponent for a second. It can be sidestepped. If you sidestep it, it's really good to get a full launch combo. So if you can predict they're gonna do it and you step it, it's kind of the attack tends to be kind of wide, so like you need a clean sidestep to step it. You can't be like, you can't mistime your step. The move puts you in heat. If you double tap back when you activate it, you can do something called a heat burst cancel, which instead of her attacking with her big leg like that, instead of that, she'll just laugh and I'll get control more quickly. So if you feel like, oh, my attack's not going to hit, I will cancel the attack itself. That makes you a little bit safer entering heat. But I want to show you something now. I want to show you that even the heat burst cancel is not safe. So check this out. It's actually very unsafe. If I'm Lili, especially, I suppose. So I will have the opponent just heat burst cancel from range, right? There. That's what the opponent does. Okay, now let's say they do that. Let's say I'm standing here and they do that. This is actually extremely bad for them if I'm on point. So, and what I mean by that is if I'm sharp with my input here. So if they do it, I messed it up. I was too early. Let's try again. There. That is a true punish. It doesn't say punish, but it's a punish. The second way to get into heat is something called a heat engager. And these vary from character to character because they're attached to specific moves. So Lili has 5 heat engagers. There's 3-1. There's backturn 1-4. There's do glide 2-1. There's 3+4. And then there's Feisty Rabbit 2. So every single heat engager, when it actually connects, it brings me into heat with a full heat bar. Heat burst only gives you 2/3 of the bar, but the heat engager gives you the full thing. There's another concept called heat dash. This is what happens when you use a heat engager while already in heat. So let's say I'm already in heat and then I use the heat engager. It does just hit, but if I hold forward, I activate the heat dash. The heat dash upon use will burn the remainder of your heat. You will be exiting heat. If they block the move that you heat dash with, then you're at +5 frames after the heat dash. If they don't block it and they get hit by it, the effect varies. So, for example, if I heat dash back turn 1-4, it's not a combo, but I get a guaranteed follow-up. Meanwhile, if I heat dash 3-1, I can actually do a combo. But once you're in heat, certain moves get powered up. All your attacks do chip damage on block. You hear that noise? That's the sound of chip damage. Now, characters have certain moves that do chip damage no matter what, such as there. You notice there's a little bit of gray life that forms in the opponent's health bar. It's damage that is recoverable, and if you hit someone, if you're comboing someone, you can start to refill that health bar up to the gray life point. Most attacks don't do chip naturally, but in heat they do, so even just getting the opponent to block my attacks, that's good for me because I'm doing chip damage. Next thing about heat is that certain attacks get powered up. So this kick I can do in the air, and all variations of it, such as this, or this, those all get powered up. Better, I don't know, damage, better frame advantage, whatever. Another attack that gets powered up for Lili specifically is this, and that's really good. So let's say they're stand blocking. It knocks them down, and that leads into another follow-up, which is that. And so I get a bunch of damage. Normally, if I hit them with that move, that's all that happens. I mean, that's a chunk of damage, sure. But it is risky. Minus 13. In heat, the reward is big. For sure. And in fact, either at the wall or out of a combo, I can set up the situation. In fact, you can heat burst in the middle of a combo, which extends the combo a bit. Activate heat, and then set it up to try to hit them with that feisty rabbit low, powered up by heat during their wake up. It's like if they stay on the ground, they get hit by it, but it doesn't do that much damage. And it's actually pretty smart of them to stay on the ground in that situation. Or they can stand up, in which case they need to immediately crouch block, or they get swept off their feet again, and they get a lot of damage. In that case, they stood up into it and ate the follow-up, right? They ate the low, then they took the damage off the ground. It can get oppressive pretty fast, but this is like the concept of heat, is that you can really lay on the dangerous offense in heat, basically. Another thing you can do in heat is heat smash. So this, it's literally just, you just press the button, you press the heat button again, and it comes out. It's typically like a relatively fast attack that is very dangerous. In Lili's case, it's quite sidesteppable. But in Season 1 of the game, her heat smash looked more like this. And it was maybe one of the worst heat smashes in the game because this is a double high, and against really keen players, they can react to it. But that's not the actual heat smash anymore. She also has a low she can do from back turn in heat. This is really strong. Like, even if you block this move, it can be tricky to get damage punishing it, so be careful. This, the little white flash like that, this is called a power crush. In this game, these moves get armor in the middle of the move. So, for example, if I try to jab after that, I get hit. They're faster than me. But if I power crush, as you can see, my attack comes out. Now in this case, she just did a single jab, And that actually hit the armor and then recovered fast enough to block. So... a -6, I try to attack, I get counter hit. Ouch, that hurts. There's even another follow-up attack if that counter hit hits. It's not a full combo, but it's relevant here. So in this case, Power Crush, like, I came out on top there. I did more damage. Power Crush was a solution to that situation right there. Another situation might be to step out of this, but you can see how Power Crush can be used to take your turn back even when it's not really your turn. Now Power Crush will lose to throws. You cannot break the throw if you get grabbed during the Power Crush startup. Also, if the Power Crush is minus enough to be grabbed, grabs are like 12 frames. So if the Power Crush is -12 or worse on block and they grab you afterward, you cannot break that throw either. The throw is guaranteed. Another thing is lows. Power Crush armor does not work against lows. There's another mechanic I need to talk about called Rage and Rage Art. Rage is when you go to low health, below a certain threshold, and your health bar starts kind of glowing red. And there are like red aura flames around my character. It's a state where I have access to one new attack, but also I do more damage in general. Rage Art is the attack. It's down forward 1+2, but you can also just bind it to a shoulder button. It does a good chunk of damage. It heals some recoverable health. And it's sort of a comeback mechanic. So similar to Power Crush, Rage Art kind of has an armor effect. In fact, the Rage Art version of the armor is stronger. You're still taking damage from hits, but even if they try to throw you or do a low, the armor will power through and perform the Rage Art. As such, it sort of doesn't matter the frame that the Rage Art itself connects, but the frame the armor kicks in. If the opponent is +3, they can beat your Rage Art with a jab, a 10-frame jab. If the opponent is +5, they can beat your Rage Art with a 12-frame attack. So there's sort of like 3 extra frames you have to sort of be aware of if you want to beat the Rage Art. So if you're like +1 and you try to jab, the Rage Art will armor through it. So when do you want to use the Rage Art attack in battle? There are 2 moments where it's kind of good to use. The first moment is just at the end of a combo to get more damage. But the second moment is to try to trump the opponent and kind of steal the round. Basically, if you intend to use Rage Art to interrupt the opponent, you want to do it in a situation where the opponent is slightly plus and they're desperate to press. They want to attack. You have to kind of sense that they want to attack. In those moments, Rage Art can blow them up. $78 damage. So in that example, Kazuya was +4 frames after his low, and then I interrupted his 14-frame attack with the Rage Art. However, he could have just jabbed instead, and in this case, the Rage Art does not come out because his jab was fast enough to interrupt it before the armor effect took place. On block, Rage Art is launch punishable. Alright, we have to talk about Wake Up. It's crazy, there's a lot of options. So if you press nothing and you're on the ground like this, you just stay down for as long as you want. If you tap up, you can stand up. This is quite safe to do. If you press back, you wake up at a distance. If you press forward, you can roll forward And if you press 1+2 while rolling forward, you can actually dive at them. You can also side roll left by pressing 1. And if you press 1 and then you press down, you can roll longer and then stay on the ground, face down. If you press down first and then you press 1, you can roll the other way. And if you keep holding down, you can roll further and stay down. If you press 3, you can do a low kick. If you press 4, you can do a mid kick. If you press down and one of the kick buttons, you can do the toe kick, which comes out faster. It's a low. And if you press 3+4, both kick buttons, you can do a spring kick. The spring kick, it's usually launch punishable, but if you hit with the end of the attack, it's not quite launch punishable. This is all further confused by the ground technique or ukemi situation or tech roll situation. Okay, so I've set up a tech roll or ukemi situation here. In this case, in order to roll to the left, I have to press a punch button, 1 or 2. And to roll to the right, I press a kick button, 3 or 4. So that's different than when you're fully on the ground and you want to roll, in which case it's down +1 or just 1. So that is already quite confusing. And then to do the recovery kick in an ukemi situation, you press forward. This recovery kick is pretty good. It's usually difficult to punish. And finally, you can hold back to get up. This like backwards get up. Or you can stay on the ground by pressing nothing. Let's see what else is in this game. Punch parries. That's one that's kind of interesting. I can do this at -5, and at -5 I can still punch parry a jab. Like this. Now, it's easy to start flowcharting this, where it's like, oh, every time I do this, I autopilot into this. It's a terrible idea. I tend to overuse it. In fact, now how about I talk about some of the more weak spots in my gameplay. So, this move 3, this big kick, first of all, it's pretty minus. You're long range, but like, it's still pretty minus. Like, even if the jab is out of range. Like, I'm safe from the jab because I'm so far away, but I'm still -10, and it's a little bit precarious. However, they're disincentivized from pressing due to the follow-ups. 3-2, which is safe, and it goes into do glide. So I can literally enter this do glide state, which is this. This has a bunch of moves from it, but I can also cancel it with a side step. So typically, when I want control, I can use her really long leg into 3-2, into do glide, into side step. This is like a sort of, you could kind of think of it like a crutch. It's like, alright, here's my crutch. I'm just gonna like, from this massive range, do a super long range mid, and then step your follow up, and start doing pressure. Or I could just block. Or I could let the whole string rip. But typically it's like, step. It's kind of a crutch. Why is it a crutch? A few reasons. One, the second hit is a high. So, if they dock, they can literally just evade this and then kill me for it by launching me afterward. However, there's a solution to this. I can do 3-1. That's a really nice heat engager. It's a good move, right? Normally it's not safe. If they just block everything, -13. So I get damaged. I get punished for doing this, right? So in order to avoid getting punished, I can go for the high, but they could duck it. Another problem is that both moves are punches. So if they have a punch parry, they can punch parry after the first hit, beating both follow-ups. I think if a sharp player is watching you, they can see this and duck, and then you die for that. They can see this and then just block, and then it's not that bad for them there. I'm minus in back turn, and I don't have like a lot of great options from there. Like, I have ways to get into plus on back turn. Even if I go +3 into back turn, I can't go for my low. I could go for my faster low, still doesn't work. It's too slow. See? What about my mids? Oh, I don't get to launch. It's a trade, and the launch doesn't kick in. See? So that doesn't work out. I could power crush, I guess, and indeed that is beneficial for me. But the risk reward is starting to not be very good, even at +3 into back turn. At +4 into back turn, it's a little better because they can't jab my mid launch right there. So that becomes more legitimate at +4. And then the bigger one is this, +10. At here, I have a lot more control. I can go for lows, I can go for mids. I can do it. I can do a bunch of things here. Oh yeah, there's another version of the hop kick, which is safer. So there's the normal hop kick. She moves forward, okay? She moves into the opponent at -13 on block. But if I do up back 4 or up 4, she moves away from the opponent. At least she's standing in place. Typically if they block it, she's moving away. It's like a little bit less dangerous if you whiff it because she's not moving forward into the opponent. She's just staying in place. But the difference between these hop kicks is the one that is in place, it doesn't launch unless it's a counter hit. Whereas the regular one just launches on normal hit. So this is a very interesting trade-off where you have your regular hop kick, which will launch them, but I mean it's quite unsafe, it moves you into them at -13. Whereas this one, it's safer to use, but they need to press. If they don't press, it doesn't launch. It just kind of knocks them down or whatever. Another thing I've tended to do is overuse of Divine Step, up 3+4. This is a really fun move. If I land on their head and they don't block it, it's a launch. I've definitely stolen a lot of rounds by landing on people's head. And what's cool is if they block it, it's actually safe. But it's not the best panic option. If it whiffs, like if they're out of range, then I die for that. And oftentimes, even if they attack into it, they end up on the other side of me. I don't land on their head. And then from there, they can usually hit me before I can escape. It's a really fun move though. Alright everyone, I have to end this video at some point. So I guess here's like a fine place to end it. Tekken has been kind of addicting but also frustrating. It's overall a very intense game. Like my heart can be like kind of jump started after playing a single game against somebody, so the intensity is there. Anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks for watching the video if you came this far, and that's all for now.